When it comes to favorite groups, I've had many. Run DMC, EPMD, Gang Starr, and more. There is one group that I feel comfortable calling my all-time favorite, and that's A Tribe Called Quest. They represent all the faces of hip-hop from the culture, MC skill, varied production, and style. Their catalog isn't vast, but it is potent. Their sophomore album, The Low End Theory, is when they went from good to great. I listen to this album at least twice a year. It's that good to me, and has aged like fine wine. This is their best album in my opinion, and you'll see why I think so. Enjoy.
Welcome to Hip Hop Now Podcast. If you're from the future, you know what to do. Get your ass out of here. Don't disrespect the legend. Hip hop is here to stay. Let's get right into the business. What up, y'all? I am your host, Vegas, and this is Hip Hop Now Podcast, a podcast specifically designed to keep you caught up on all things hip hop, music, and culture that happened through the week. Big shout out to the Patreon supporters over at patreon.com/hiphopnow, past and present. If you would like to become a Patreon supporter of this podcast, which is also available in audio form and video form, click the link in the description of this episode. Road to 500 subscribers over at YouTube. Right now we're at about 453, so we're making some progress. We hit that mark. We was trying to get to that 50, and we kept almost getting there, but didn't. But now we're here, right? 500 subscribers. So I look at my stats all the time. Over 50% of the people who click play on my episodes, on my videos, aren't subscribed to the podcast. So what I need you to do is, if you enjoy this podcast, if you check in every now and again, don't have to be every week, don't have to be every day, but you check in every now and again to see what's there. Subscribe, help a brother out, help a brother get to 500. Obviously, the road is to get to 1,000, but baby steps. So hit subscribe, and more importantly, if you know other hip hop heads that should be put on to this hip hop news podcast and perspectives, share it on your social media networks and your groups and your Reddits and wherever else you like to talk hip hop on the internet. Big shout out to, before we go there, just real quick. So, for those who don't know, I have a book that I wrote years ago about my experience in hip hop. It's called Experience Hip Hop. Each chapter deals with a classic hip hop album, my memory of buying the album, my thoughts, how I got the album, where I was in my life when the album dropped. And I go over a number of classics. We are now on the 4th chapter of the book, which features A Tribe Called Quest's The Low End Theory. One of my favorite groups of all time, or my favorite group of all time, but also probably my favorite album from them. I'm not going to debate the Midnight Marauders' Low End Theory, because we can go back and forth. There are good reasons on both sides. But this chapter is about the Low End Theory, because it was the album that had the biggest impact on me, becoming a fan of that group at the time. So if you would like to read that chapter of the book, the link is in the description of this episode. Subscribe to the Substack to stay locked into the next chapter that'll be coming probably towards the end of August sometime. So let me know what you think. Check it out. I enjoyed writing it. I enjoyed revisiting it. Honestly, I might have wrote this thing almost 10 years ago. I can't believe that. But I polished it up. It's presented to you. Other chapters include Nas's Illmatic, Slick Rick's The Great Adventures of Slick Rick, Ice Cube's Death Certificate, of course, and more to come. So stay locked in for that. Now, big shout out to hiphopdx.com, the sourcemagazine.com. Sometimes, yeah, cool. DJBooth.net, and a couple of places where I'm getting some of these stories from. Let's get right to the business, though. So it's been a while, but not that long, maybe last year, since we heard Westside Gunn talking about a new project, right? He had released, I think, 2 projects last year, which were cool. Not the best in my opinion, but they were cool for what they were. And then he had a death in his family that really impacted him. So he kind of became a little bit more low key online. I mean, if you watch wrestling, you still saw him at wrestling events and you would see him tweet and Instagram here and there, but not with any of the energy that he was doing prior to this loss and his family. But now he's back and he has officially announced FlyGod is an Awesome God Part 3, completing the trilogy. Where the first one, I'm not even going to hold you. I know Supreme Blind Tell is what people love, and that's the classic. But I think for me, I love that one too. Don't get it twisted. But I think for me, FlyGod is an Awesome God. The first one is just as great. It's like if we had to give Westside Gunn classics, I think that one's a classic. Also, part 2 was a little disappointing because my expectations were so high because I loved the first one so much that the second one kind of didn't fulfill those expectations for me. But this is the third one. He seems to have like a lot of energy, a lot of hope, So I'm guessing, and I think the break from how he would post on social media and coming up out of this sad situation, energized, may help this project be dope or be better than ever. Because honestly, the last couple of releases from Westside Gunn have been hit or miss for me, right? Like sometimes he'll drop something where I'm like, there was a lot of hype behind this coming from him mostly, and it just wasn't that. And then he'll release something that honestly doesn't have the same amount of hype, but yet it's better. So I'm just hoping for the best. Let's see. This is coming from Hip Hop D. Well, actually, this is coming from Westside Gunn's Twitter. He said this: FlyGod is an Awesome God 3 trilogy. The album is crazy. I had to bring the mask back out because this is too raw and dusty. I know the game missed me, even though my kid's been doing a great job with entertaining. Your father's back home, right? So the album cover is him with the mask. I think he got a bulletproof vest on and all of that, which is cool. But I'm just gonna say this, man. Like the mask is a part of his aesthetic. He got plenty of albums with the mask on, right, including Supreme Blind Tell. So to me, it doesn't signal this is the third in a trilogy to an album that kind of had that aesthetic. He's released so many projects with that. What I liked a lot about the first one was because it was artwork, right? It was a picture of him with a mask on, bent down on his knees, like not bent down on his knees, but bent down. Like, but do I gotta say pause for that? Whatever. Bent down, and they turned that into like artwork, right? I would prefer if they take this and do that because that was a part of the mystique. It's kind of like the one album I love that I'm the only one that probably listens to at least twice a year, Do Rag Dynasty, right? It's something about the name Do Rag Dynasty, the cover with the Lakers back in the 80s winning the championship, but they put do rags on everybody from Magic Johnson to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Pat Riley, and then the music that matched the aesthetic. Now, I'm not saying this doesn't, but I think for this trilogy specifically, how it began with the music, with the Raekwon intro, with the cover, it just was dope. And the third one kind of missed all of what was dope about the first one. So I'm hopeful. He's always going to say the music's crazy because that's just what he says half the time, but we shall see once it drops. Common recently in an interview listed what he thinks, or at least his Mount Rushmore for Chicago, right? Uh, he was on 1075 WGCI in Chicago, and he was talking about his new album with Pete Rock, The Auditorium Volume 1, which is pretty dope. If you're a hip-hop head and you haven't heard that one, I don't know what you're doing. But they went on to talk about, rappers and who's the best in Chicago and top fives in Mount Rushmore. And he went on to say this about some of his favorite rappers. And I quote, "Well, Kanye is going on there for sure. I'm going to put Lupe Fiasco on there. Twista is bad, but let me see. It's tough. Let me see. I'm going to put Dirk up there because Dirk is doing what he do. And then, man, I think I'm excluding myself because I would be up there, but I might have to go with Chance the Rapper at that point." And some people push back because he didn't include Chief Keef. Who else? And he shouted out other rappers like G Herbo and Lil Reese. Now, what do I feel? Right? I know y'all didn't ask, but I'm going to tell you anyway. Mount Rushmore, right? So Mount Rushmore is 4, I think. Let's see what he added. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5. So it's like a top 5 Mount Rushmore. I think this is pretty simple, to be honest. And it ain't really about popularity. It's about body of work, longevity, things of that nature, to be honest. So I agree. Common should be on that Mount Rushmore. Kanye should be on that Mount Rushmore. Twista definitely should be on that Mount Rushmore. I think Lupe should also be on that Mount Rushmore. When you look at Lupe's catalog, I don't know if you haven't heard a Lupe Fiasco song since Kick Push. You're missing out on a lot of dope hip hop. He deserves to be on that as far as like dudes that are nice from there. And that 5th spot, I don't know if I would give it to Chance, because even though I like Chance the Rapper and I even like the album that nobody liked after his debut, but I don't think he's had that much of an impact beyond that, right? He hasn't really released a lot of music since then, and it's tough to just put him on a Mount Rushmore. I think in a lot of ways, got to be Chief Keef. I'm saying. Now, I'm not a fan of Chief Keef, and it's not really about young versus old or anything of that nature. It's just really more about what I like personally in music and how I can get into it. But I think what can't be denied about Chief Keef is he inspired a movement for a younger generation as far as the rappers that followed in his footsteps. Like, I can't say Dirk is bigger than Chief Keef when it comes to impact overall, because I think Chief Keef was the guy who set the bar, right? Same thing with Lil Reese and all them other cats you want to add. So I would say that, and that represents Chicago drill in a lot of ways, trap or whatever. Probably drill more than anything. But when you look at those 5 I named, there's a lot of skill, there's a lot of influence, there's a lot of style. I just think as a person who's not from Chicago and really only knows those artists that are huge coming out of Chicago, there's probably somebody who also deserves to be on that Mount Rushmore that I'm just not aware of. So if you know, leave your comments in the comment section below. But I'll take the opportunity, since we talking Chicago rappers, to shout out I Am God. If you've never heard of I Am God and you love hip hop and you love bars specifically, you gotta listen to this dude. More than once he's been a part of my best of the year, right? He's been on my playlist for best of the year for several years now. And he will continue to be this year because he put out 3 projects and all of them was fire with Clipto. So that's a guy you need to check out, because when you talk about today, and you may not like a lot of the Chicago rappers today, like a Dirk or a Chief Keef or a Lil Reese or whatever, and you just really want the bars, but you're off Common, you off Lupe. Check out I Am God. Um, Dude is dumb nice. And lastly, so I ain't even gonna hold y'all, man. If you don't know, Rakim has recently released a brand new album after more than a decade, I believe, uh, or close to it, one or the other, called God's Network Rebirth. This album, recently released, contains 7 songs, clocking in at 32 minutes. Most of the production, if not all the production, I think all the production is done by Rakim. The one thing that caught most people's eyes as they say, "Oh, the God is back, the God is back," is the fact that the God is back with 100,000 features. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. Features include, and I'm gonna just go through a couple of them: Corrupt, Master Killer, BG, Huss, Kingpin, Nipsey Hussle, Planet Asia, Snoop Dogg, even though he's not really rapping, Fred the Godson, Sky Zoo, 38 Special, Crooked, Cannabis, Chino XL, Tri-State, Joel Ortiz, Coogee Rap, Method Man, Prodigy, and the list goes on. Now, not everybody has a verse, but everybody contributes in some way. Like, for example, on the song God's Playground, DMX does a prayer at the end, and I believe it's a prayer he did when he met Rakim for the first time. You've seen, if you haven't, check out that video online. But y'all know how I do when it comes to reviews. I do give it 3 listens, right? The first one is my impressions. The second one is to listen more intently. And then the third one is to confirm my thoughts. And after listening to this album 3 times, and it's the quick review for some of y'all, it's not bad. It's better than I thought it would be, but it's not great. I could tell you completely right now, it will not be in my top 5 of the year. And that's no knock on it. That top 5 has become very tough to nail down with the number of releases recently that are so dope. I have to rethink how I have things. Will it be in my best of the year, right? Which is a longer list of 10 albums. I doubt it, because what I find with this project in particular is that even though the beats are cool, you don't get enough Rakim. And it's kind of disappointing, because I like the beats better than I thought I would, because the first single, BL, featuring Corrupt and Master Killer, did not move me whatsoever, like at all. I was just like, ugh, this is what we're going to hear. Corrupt hasn't been as good as he used to be, at least not in every performance, even though that Dog Pound album will be in my best of the year, because they're rocking it straight. But this particular feature was like, yeah. Also, I'm not the biggest fan of Master Killer. I get it. Some people like him. I'm not a fan of his flow, never really have been. Obviously, there's some iconic verses on some iconic Wu-Tang songs where you just kind of like all of it. And then he's had a song or two here and there as far as his solo career that, oh, bars, that I liked. But I would have preferred, respectfully, Jizza on this record with Rakim. And Rakim lyrically was, I think he was better than he's been, or maybe it's just because the production is better than his previous album from a couple of years ago that he sounds better. But again, you just don't get enough. Like, I swear, there's a song on here, I don't remember which one it was, where I'm like, did Rakim even rhyme on this record? I couldn't remember. I was like, I don't think Rakim had a verse on this song. Now, standout performances as far as MCs, uh, BG on the song "Now Is the Time." I liked it a lot. I was skeptical seeing BG on there with Hus Kingpin and Rakim, and I was like, yo, I don't know about this. And Compton Menace. But I really like BG on there, so I thought he was a standout. Hus Kingpin did his job. Um, Nipsey Hussle's verse was cool, but I think I like Planet Asia's verse better. Sky Zoo and Fred the Godson did their thing. Same thing with 38 Special, even though I'm not the biggest fan, but I don't have nothing to do with his bars. The dude is nice. Also, King Crooked was dope. Cannabis, I did not like. Chino XL, I've kind of never liked. I get why people like him. These dudes aren't whack with their bars. It's just, for me, it's more delivery, voices in some case, and stuff like that. Other standouts, Coogee Rap was cool on a verse. Joel Ortiz was pretty dope. Prodigy was good. It made me really want that Mobb Deep album like ASAP. But to me, the best verse on this album was Method Man. And it's the last song. It's a song called Sign of the Seven. Method Man, like his last album was not bad. It was okay. I think it was Meth Lab 3. But it's like his albums can't live up to his guest featured verses. This is one of his best, in my opinion. I thought Method Man was dope. So again, in all, I think it was a pretty solid project, a solid album for Rakim. But the only problem with that is we wanted to hear from Rakim, and we wanted to hear more from Rakim. And this is just a compilation. Honestly, Rakim, even though this was probably more of a display of his production versus him as an MC, he should have just did that. He should have just said, yo, this is me as a producer, and I'm bringing a lot of my favorite rappers on the track. And then maybe he just rhyme on one track at the very end, and that's it. At least you could set the expectations. But all that return of the God, blah, 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 the God is back, God is back. No, he wasn't. The God was doing what I do, right? When I know I'm not going to be at the party the whole time, I'm showing my face, and then I'm going to disappear. And that's kind of what it felt like. So to me, honestly, unless you like all the guest appearances and all of this works for you, it will be a forgettable album really quick by the end of the year. It definitely will. And it's unfortunate because we're in a year where Pete Rock and Common got some heat. You know, LL Cool J and Q-Tip sounding like they got a winner on their hand. You know, there's the Nas and Premier that's supposedly supposed to drop. And then there's a whole bunch of other albums that were just better than this, that makes the competition thick, where you're just not going to think about this album. I'll say this. If you're a person who doesn't listen to as much hip hop as I do, or, you know, at all, and you got excited because there's a Rakim release, you may like it, but you may not like it because we just want more Rakim on it. That's all. Was that? So hopefully Rakim says, I hear y'all, here's an EP, and it's just me rapping on it, right? And a guest feature, maybe a Nas, and that's it, right? But this ain't it, to be honest. It's cool, but I could see myself really not listening to it ever again. So there you have it. What do you think about Rakim's new project? Did you like it? Are you willing to listen? You could care less because Pete and CL is so heavy rotate. Pete and CL, wow. Pete and Common is on heavy rotation. Leave your comments in the comment section below. I do read them. I do respond. We're trying to get to 500 subscribers right here on the channel. So what I need you to do is, if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe to the podcast to stay locked in, join the crew, man. We ain't gonna jump you in unless you want to be jumped in. But I'm saying, join the crew by subscribing to the podcast. and hit the notification if you just like to know when there's a new episode. Tale of the Tapes, the series that you can watch here. I did 12 of them a couple of months ago. Check that series out. The next round of Tale of the Tapes will be happening starting in August, so stay tuned for that. Until next time, y'all, I'm not a critic, I'm a fan. Peace.